Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Think of all that time. Every wait in the winter. All those hours no one else. Think of all that time. Think of every sacrifice in the summer. Every wait in the mornings on the levee. Late nights in the film room. Bus rides to playoff games. Every bump in the road. Every moment of ecstasy. Every moment of doubt. Years wondering. Is it all worth it? It's all led to this. It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all that time, this is our time.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Good knowing exactly where to go with the football.
Okay, I'm having tech difficulties, so just bear with me. Anyway, welcome into Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you in part by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice, helping teach them how to podcast, and most importantly, having veterans' voices be heard. I am back with the CHhi Kid, Mike Hughes from Chi-Town. I don't know about you, buddy, but here in the Midwest, it's been rainy and stormy, like on and off all day. It's about to pea rain once again, dude. It was like. It looked like nighttime outside earlier. Like it was like pitch black.
It was that kind of day. I like those kind of days. You remember in high school when you would like go to school and it would kind of be like darker in the whole school because there's no sun outside. I used to like it'd be a different vibe. It'd be a different vibe.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I like the crappy weather as far as like the weird overcast, like a little gray, a little cloudy, a little cool, not like
y'all
like
get to see how I feel every day. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like the inside gets to be outside for Jeff. But speaking of, that's a great transition because I feel like that's every NFL fan after this past weekend of 2025 draft. You and I don't think feel that way. Like we kind of have some mixed feeling about Da Bears and some other teams as far as drafts and whatnot go. But we would be remorse if we don't talk about obviously the biggest headline that everybody wanted to talk about and they made a massive deal about, and that is Shadeur Sanders going in the 5th round. The Cleveland Browns' last pick of this draft was Shadeur Sanders. Mel Kiper goes on an absolute temper tantrum. He gets prank called by the Falcons defensive coordinator's son that he's going to have to wait a little bit longer. Apparently Tyler Warren also got prank called.
I heard that.
Somebody
I
saying
did
that
hear that.
was by somebody that said they were part of the Jets and that he was also going to have to wait a little longer. I'm like, it's a little messed up there.
I don't know
But,
how they're getting these numbers. I really don't.
I don't either. I'm like, dude, you know how many celebrities I would love to be able to have their phone number? And the last thing I want is people, hey man, you got to wait a little bit. Like, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Like Sydney Sweeney, I'm trying to slide in the DMs. Like
Yeah.
like Tyler Warren, you cool. Like you probably
Pick
be
you
great
up
to
at
have beer
7,
with.
you know, like
But
be ready.
yeah, I got bigger fish to go after. Just I'd like not that. Not that. But nonetheless, buddy, what was your thoughts on the Shadeur thing? Because I kind of have my own, but I'll let you kick it off. As far as, did you think that he deserved to go in the 5th round? Because supposedly, and this is what I thought was funny, everybody had him labeled and graded as a 1st-round quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this year's quarterback class, you could probably make that argument.
Yeah.
But realistically, what did that say about this year's quarterback class that Shadeur is quote unquote labeled a 1st-round pick?
Yeah, for sure. I think first you talk about consistency. I think when we look at guys like a Baker Mayfield or a Johnny Manziel, Johnny Manziel especially, clubbing as much as he was, and I saw everybody very upset about Shadeur. I don't know if this was real time or this was an old video that got pulled up, but they saw him with rappers at a club after the draft. Could have just been an old video that came back up, not quite sure. But if that is the case, Johnny Manziel was the guy, part of my language, putting probably $2,000 up to each ear saying, I can't hear you. There's too much money in my fucking head, while he's on God knows what substances and drinking God knows what. Baker Mayfield wasn't, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to be wrong. Wasn't Baker like arrested right before the draft? If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he drunk and disorderly somewhere? And if I remember correctly, it was some quarterback. I don't remember exactly who it was. Stetson Bennett, same thing. You know what I mean? Like we go down this rabbit hole of guys who just fucked up notoriously right before the draft. Jalen Carter is in a huge heap of trouble right before the draft. Yep. And you really don't know what's going on with that. Still goes in the top 10. And Shadeur gets the 5th round. Now, my first initial thought is the Cleveland Browns, for the first time ever, just got the biggest fleece potentially of this decade if Shadeur turns into a franchise quarterback.
Correct.
But then they fuck it up and take another quarterback in the 3rd round. So I still can't praise them too much. You had 4 picks and 2 of them are on quarterbacks. You brought in Flacco. You still got Watson. What are we doing? But
and they traded for Pickett too in the offseason.
Yeah, they Pickett. I didn't even remember that. That's
I didn't either. Frankie had to remind me of that. He's like, oh yeah, this guy's still on the roster. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about him.
I didn't even know he was in the league. Where's Zach Wilson? I don't even know. But I think Zach Wilson's somewhere actually. I don't think he's with the Broncos though. But my point while you look at that, I will say I think it's wrong. I think it was truly wrong to really do him the way they did. But I have a hard time. I really do, because I also heard, and these are all just rumors and speculations. I wasn't on the phone with Brian Dable or anybody else in the organization of anywhere. So I don't know what's true and what's not, but the reports coming out is that, Shadeur came in with beats around his head or around his neck, blasting music during his interviews with his entourage behind him. Like, if I'm Brian Dable and I'm expecting you to just walk in this room for the biggest interview of your life and 4 other dudes fucking walk in the room, like, what are we doing? And then you're blasting music. Like, it just seemed very unserious. And look, I understand there's a great comparison going around about Eli Manning and Arch and how that whole situation went down with San Diego way back when. But it's also like, well, how did Eli present himself when he was actually doing those interviews, though? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if Shadeur really did walk in like a jagoff, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then you hear him speaking at the combine saying, well, if you pick me, you better be ready for a culture changer, and I'm going to change the organization from top to bottom. And it's just like, Deion's Deion, but you're just Shadeur Sanders, brother. You know what I mean? And I don't know, Tone, how did you feel about the whole thing? Because I'm like, I understand both sides. Wow. You don't want to touch my beard, Frankie? I'll give you some.
There we go.
There we go.
Here's what I'll say though. For Shadeur, for him to come in and do that, and like you said, Dion is Dion, but Dion also made a name for himself, and he did it 2 separate times, because not only did he get picked for the NFL draft, he got picked to play baseball.
Yep.
Went ahead and play baseball.
Lost the World Series.
He did lose the World Series, but then he also came into the NFL and he absolutely dominated when it came to being on the Falcons, the 49ers, Dallas. And then obviously he had stints with both Baltimore and with Washington too. Mm-hmm. He is able to have kind of that cockiness and ego and that arrogance. Right. Like realistically looking at Shadeur can't do that, because in the 2 seasons he was at Colorado, his first season, they were terrible in the Pac-12 when it was probably one of the Pac-12's best seasons throughout its history, especially as it was coming up to the end. He comes into the Big 12 this past season and definitely has a better year. They went 9-4. They were through an extreme variety of tiebreakers, and they had to have other teams, screw up. Would have been in contention for the Big 12 championship had other people potentially screwed up. But again, that was long since taken out of their hands. So collectively, just at Colorado, playing at a Power 5 level, when he, moved up, he went 13-11 at Colorado. Now at Jackson State, he went 23-3, which is great. He balled out. But you're balling out against, lesser talent and lesser competition. Mm-hmm. And so for him, Jay said he wants to pod with us again, that he misses us. Jay,
I don't want to pod with you.
I'll pod with you, Jay.
I won't pod with you, Jay.
Mike might not, but I will.
Wait, I'm not even looking. What Jay is this?
Jay Ness.
Oh, I would love to talk about how Devin Booker's not a franchise player, bro. I would love. No, I'm playing. Jay, we love you, baby.
I know Frankie would love to just about KD. That'd be the whole show. Just KD and just KD and them. But nonetheless, though, like, I was telling you right before the show started, my buddy at work, Mike, brought up a really good point that Cam Ward was drafted number 1 overall this past draft. And that was because realistically, out of this quarterback class that was realistically pretty bad, all of the quarterbacks needed some type of work or had some type of issues.
Yeah.
He was the best out of that class.
And Mike, after what you showed, what you inside the Hoosier mind showed me about Cam Ward, after we made that reel, I really started watching the film, and you opened my eyes to how dog shit Cam Ward is. It's great. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But
and the bad part is like statistically, Cam had a good year.
He did.
Like he really did. But again, it's that like kind of nonchalant, like
it looked like flag football, bro. It really did.
Mm-hmm. And what's even worse is the year before at Washington State, he balled out too. Like that's what kind of brought Washington State back for at least the beginning of last year. Post Cam Ward was him. So, and if you look at the class last year, he would have been probably the 6th best quarterback. And so if he's the 6th best quarterback in last year's draft, but the 1st best in this year's, what does that say about a dude who went all but 500 at his time in a Power 5 conference? Again, statistically, and everybody brought it up, he had just as good of a season this past season statistically as Cam Ward did. But where are the wins? Yeah. Like Cam and Miami are at least, competing for, being in the playoffs. Now, don't get it twisted. Miami did their own boneheaded decisions as far as messing up, and I watched Miami a pretty good chunk throughout the season. They were really bad about, they would get a lead, and then they'd let the team start to come back. And I'm like, you're eventually going to get to this point of you're not going to be able to, kind of stop that team from making a comeback if you don't keep the pedal to the metal. Am I the hottie? We are discussing the Shadeur Sanders falling all the way down into the 5th round of the NFL draft. I know Jay said he had some questions. You can ask Jay. We'll talk about them. I mean, this is
Jay,
probably going to be.
You can come on the show, Jay. We'll send you the link, Jay.
That's also possible.
Maybe, I don't know if Tony fucks with you like that, but
Nah, we could do that.
Tony, do you have 2 seconds, good sir?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if you can pull up those pictures I just messaged you on Facebook, if you could, because I thought it was a very interesting conversation. If you can't, it's completely okay. But I thought it was interesting. I heard a lot of people talking about Shadeur Sanders and how he presented himself. You saw like the way his draft room kind of looked and how everybody kind of was like really overhyping that this guy was going to get taken in the top 3, and then obviously has a giant chain around his neck. A lot of people thought that was too flashy. A lot of people thought he looked like a dick. A lot of people thought it just wasn't a good look. I just want to remind everybody, like, when Tony can pull up these pictures, like, his father did the same exact thing. And we have seen so many players do this in years past. So I'm not going to take that into consideration whatsoever about why that played a role into this, that, or the other. Like, when we are able to show it, you're going to see Dion and Tony. I don't even know what year that would be, but and then you have Shadeur in 2025. But I mean, it's damn near identical. They are the same 2 guys. So for people that are saying, you know, Neon Dion was the nickname going around, you know, as a kid, you know, for him growing up, here's Shadeur. Now the chain he was wearing on draft day, far bigger and far better. But look at this one right here of Dion. You're gonna tell me that, oh well, Dion made a name for himself. He wasn't always like that. Yes, the fuck he was. Dion was always that way. And you know, some people live or die by that. You know what I mean? You can be the cockiest guy in the fucking room. You know, we got Sauce Gardner, who got absolutely sauced in 2024. Statistically, did not have great numbers as a corner. That's just the truth of the matter. Patrick Surtain, who I haven't heard Patrick Surtain say a single word in the last 2 years since being drafted, is the best corner in the NFL by far. And you kind of just watch that, Tony. And I want to ask you, why, you know, we forget. Why do we forget the past, and why do we act like things weren't the way they were? You know, we talk about Michael Jordan and LeBron a lot as well, and you know, we kind of act like Mike was this holy guy, and he was the one that just led the NBA in a phenomenal way. Guy had a gambling addiction, and arguably could have potentially been doing blow with the late 80s Chicago Bulls. May or may not, I don't know. But like, what makes you think that there's a difference between these 2 right here?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, I don't. And the one thing that people brought up with Dion is the fact that there is only one Dion. There's only been one Dion Sanders. And for me, I don't know if Shadeur is purely just trying to copy his dad in that regard. And again, the other thing that to me, while as a collegiate career statistically, Shadeur had a really great college career. You know, he went 36-14 between Jackson State and Colorado, threw for over 14K yards, 134 touchdowns, and 27 picks. Yeah, which is great. Like, and he technically rushed for 17 touchdowns. But again, you know, Jackson State was a group of 5 school, so they're not really competing for a national title. Nothing against them, because it wasn't like they were ever going to get into the college football playoff race, especially at the time when there was only 4 teams. Now with 12, okay, a little bit different. Colorado, he wasn't competing for a national title. Like nobody the entire time was saying, man, Shadeur looks like the guy that, you know, is the face of college football. Like, you looked at all the quarterbacks this past season. Everybody talked about Cam Ward out of Miami. Everybody talked about Quinn Ewers out of Texas. You know,
where did he go?
He went 7th to the Dolphins, which is also where Zach Wilson is at. He signed with the Dolphins as well. So you got to think Quinn Ewers, who, you know, took his team, you know, 1 game shy of the national championship and had a really good collegiate career with Texas. You know, he goes in the 7th round. Look at Will Howard, who, you know, albeit I didn't think Will Howard was going to win a national championship, takes Ohio State, takes them to the national title and wins. He gets drafted 6th by Pittsburgh in the 6th round. You look at Riley Leonard, took his team to the national title game with Notre Dame. He gets drafted in the 6th round by the Colts. And Shadeur, you know, goes 9-4. Colorado isn't even in the playoffs. Colorado didn't sniff the playoffs either time. He went 1-9 against top 25 teams. And people are talking about, oh, he was one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the draft. No, realistically, he was about a 5th round talent. Because again, like you said, if Cleveland is able to pull it off and he's developed or he grows into being a franchise quarterback, you're absolutely right. Cleveland pulled off the fleece of a century. And I'll say this too, it doesn't always matter where you're drafted. It honestly doesn't even matter if you're drafted, because you could honestly look at somebody like, as much as people kind of have a love-hate with him as a player and even as a color commentator, look at Tony Romo. Tony Romo was an undrafted free agent. Ends up actually having a pretty decent NFL career. Everybody, of course, brings up Tom Brady. He's drafted in the 6th round. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, took his team to the Super Bowl and whatnot. Kurt Warner, and he won a Super Bowl. So, and, look at the guys that are drafted in the 1st round that are total busts. Like you said, Johnny Manziel didn't take it seriously.
Mitch Trubisky,
he was taken 2nd overall? He was taken 2nd overall. Look at Ryan. You go even as far back as Ryan Leaf. Look at Zach Wilson. Look at Trey Lance. And like I told you that I pointed out, I think that's the other reason why Shadeur didn't get drafted as early as he did, because people were hesitant. Because you look at that 2021 draft class, only one guy is still with his original team that drafted him. And that's your boy Trevor Lawrence. And that's it. And even then, you can make the argument, has Trevor lived up to the potential?
Yeah.
No.
Even Mac Jones is over there with Trevor now.
No, he's with the 49ers.
Or he's with I like that for Mac a lot.
It's funny how some of these guys move to the places. It's like, okay, this is where we thought they were going to go. This is probably where they would succeed the best had they gone there to start with.
Like I told you, I thought Fields was going to end up going to San Francisco, because originally that's what I thought. I didn't think Trey Lance. We talked about this the other night. Trey Lance was going to go as high as he did, but
no.
I kind of want to throw a bone at you. I didn't want to put it in our list of topics.
Okay,
Tony, there are 6 Colorado Buffaloes who got their jerseys retired. 2 of them were drafted this year. 1 taken in the top 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's number 2.
The other was drafted in the 5th round, 140 something overall. Now that we've seen how this played out, how do you evaluate the retirement of Shadeur Sanders' jersey number?
I mean, I'm going to look at it the same way I did before. I'm not going to say it's a joke, but it's borderline. And here's the other funny thing that I know you and I talked about before. For a lot of people, they want to blame Dion, like, oh, Dion did it for his son. Well, one, you and I made the joke. I guess Shiloh can just,
fuck him, right?
Say take a bottle of lotion, and he's just
still waiting for his call.
Rude. Yeah, like Shiloh, you don't get your number right. You don't get your number retired. But Shadeur does. It wasn't actually up to Dion. It supposedly was up to the athletic director of Colorado, and the fact that he said that they changed, it changed Colorado's perception, and it'll change Colorado's program. Like I said, to me, if it's 5 to 6 years down the road and they do that, sure, I can make that argument that they absolutely changed Colorado. You're getting more big names, big players, brands, everything like that coming to Boulder to do that. I don't see that with Shadeur right now. Like personally, I don't see it. And again, you went 13-11. Colorado never even sniffed the playoffs. Now, Frankie brought this, or maybe it was Jay, one of the two. Jay brought it up, and I'll bring you in here in a second, Jay. I haven't forgot about you.
Jay's coming?
He is.
Oh,
Jay brought up the good fact. Can we take into the fact that Colorado was dog dookie prior to Dion, and was barely turning the roster around in the 2nd year? And that is true. They went 1-11, and the games that they lost like majorly in that time. So Dion did do a complete roster haul, and Dion got a lot of flack for that. Oh, how could he do that to those kids? Why would he, do all that? He did need to change the culture, and much like a job, if you don't perform to the standard of a job and get it to the point where you need to be at, you're probably going to get fired. And that's the exact same thing that Dion did with those kids, albeit does it suck? Yes, but he's treating them and training them and getting them ready for a professional business life. And the same thing that the NFL is doing. If you don't do your job, guess what? You're done. You're going to get cut, and you may or may not ever get another chance, depending on how bad it is. Look at Johnny Manziel. You got one chance, you didn't take it seriously, and he's gone.
0 minutes of film watched for Johnny Manziel. Still one of my favorite parts. But no, I think that's, you hit it on the head with that. And I think, like, look, it really does suck. And if I was one of those kids, I would be the biggest Deion Sanders hater in the world if my scholarship was taken away because Deion didn't think I was good enough. But one thing I will say is this, to your point, Shadeur played very well. Shiloh at times played very well. Travis Hunter obviously wins a Heisman. The players he replaced them with weren't ass by any means. These were quality players. Now, they still weren't going to take down Ohio State or Michigan or LSU or anything like that. But compared to what these guys were, I mean, let's be completely honest, they were playing like a D3 university. You know what I mean? And I don't even know where they're at right now university-wise. But, you know, I definitely think they really stepped up the bar, and that should just be what it is at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people might hate Deion forever for taking those kids scholarships, but did you deserve them in the first place? You know, it's like kind of like equivalent to over here in Chicago if you play for the Chicago White Sox right now. Like, brother, y'all lost the most games in a single season ever. If they start replacing y'all, don't feel some type of way. They're just trying to get better players on the field. You know what I mean? Like, that's
hey,
what
in their defense. In their defense, you could go on the field, Mike, and probably be the best player for the White Sox right now. Like,
look, I'll be top 2. I don't think I'm 2. You know, 5'8" in the batter's box, Mike Hughes. I think by the end of the year, I would get a hit or hit.
I believe it. Terry, appreciate you joining us and tuning in for the Trace Around podcast. She's awesome. She interviews a lot of veterans, a lot of police officers, EMS and whatnot, helping build their brands, helping get them out there and whatnot. But we'll bring Jay in for a little throwback. Little throwback, God. Jay. How are you, good sir?
Long time no see.
Get him away from me. Get him away from me.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Unfortunately.
All right. Shut up, Mike. Shut up.
You want my wallet, bro?
Y'all want your wallet?
You want my wallet, bro? You want my dues, bro?
It's time to pay him. You know, I feel like the $1 million man. What do you say? Pay me my money. But no, I think the Shadeur thing, man, I felt like his whole career, we saw like the double-edged sword was always used on the bad side for him. What he did in Jackson, what they did in Jackson, it was always, well, look who you're playing. Look at the competition. Then he comes to Colorado. Well, you know, he has his dad there. The offense is catered to him. Then the second year, they move to a better conference in a sense of competition on a game-to-game level. And he performs well. He does his thing. Then, and at this point, all the scouts are still saying top 5 pick. Okay. Number 1 or number 2 quarterback. Number 1 and number 2 quarterback, top 5 pick. That's what we've been hearing for almost a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
So for you to get a defensive coordinator's son calling him with a prank, for you to get him to drop all the way to the 5th round with just no, like, when we see something like this, there's something there. There's something like, oh yeah, he had an injury we were looking at and we found some more information out. Oh, he got in trouble. There was this and that. He smoked weed. We saw that with Tyrann Mathieu. Like, there was something attached to every downfall.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest ones we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's nothing attached to it.
Here's my one question to retort that, Jay. If he did not have Sanders on the back of his name, would we still call it one of the biggest slide drop downs we've ever seen?
Yeah, because if you're telling me you should be 1 through 5, you should be the second quarterback drafted for 2 years. Even the week before the draft, the same exact thing. What can you give me a reason why those guys, those other 28 guys, because maybe 4 of them said he wasn't supposed to be the number 1 and number 2. I'll give them.
Right.
But what about those 28 guys that said he should be number 1 and number 2 quarterback? Forget the top 5 part. The number 1 and number 2 quarterback. What happened to those 28 guys that said that that's what should happen?
Yeah.
What changed for them?
But much to Mike's point, look at, and again, this is all speculation. I haven't seen any like concrete proof or other than just what we've heard. From what we've heard from his interviews and whatnot, and especially the one that I've seen most frequently come out, maybe it's just because I, happen to be around more Giants fans, is he had a sit down with Brian Dable. Brian Dable, I guess, kind of gave him some film to study and walk through and whatnot. It seemed like Shadeur didn't take it seriously. He didn't do very well. Brian Dable called him out for it. Shadeur didn't take that very well. And Brian Dable was kind of upset at the fact that Shadeur didn't handle it very well. And don't get it twisted. There's a lot of guys, they don't take getting called out well. And that just kind of is what it is. But I would say two things for that kind of make it inexcusable to me is, one, your dad is Deion Sanders. And by the sounds of it and what we've seen in actual life practice, as Deion has said, if you're not following by my rules, if you're not in the place that you need to be, you will not play. You will sit on the bench. And he did do it to Shadeur the one time that he did it. So I don't really get why Shadeur would be upset about Brian Dable calling him out for it. Because it's like, look, if this is really what you want to do, because like Deion has said the entire time with all of these guys that come in, I'm setting you up for your job. And realistically, that's what you're doing in college is you're building your resume.
Not just to be a NFL player, but to be a professional, like
correct,
following the guidelines, showing up on time, doing the right things.
And I would say, did they look at him and say, as an athlete, as a player, yes, you're a top 5 pick. You should be one of the top 5 quarterbacks taken. But then after the interview, did they say, professionally, as our franchise guy, we don't know how we feel about you being a face and the representation of our franchise?
Let me take us back to Jamarcus Russell.
Okay.
Jamarcus Russell did so well at LSU.
Yes.
So well. He was considered one of the best quarterbacks in college, one of the better prospects we had seen in a long time.
Yep.
They jumped all over that man about his work ethic. Jumped all over him about his work ethic. How long did it last before he gained another 150, 200 pounds and was not showing up to practice?
Sure.
Right. Not long.
Sure.
And all those things were out. We knew all about it. He still went in the first round, still top 15. So
I don't know, bro. I think for like Jay, I hear what you're saying, but like my problem, you say take us back to Jamarcus Russell. I'll take you back to just a few years ago. I don't think Deion knew when to say when. I think Deion made it more about Deion prime time, building up Colorado. Like I'm on 24/7 Sports right now, and whether there's validity to this, may or may not know, but they sure as hell did a very good job of putting it together. Teams that offered Deion Sanders' son, Shadeur Sanders, an offer to their university, Jackson State, Alabama, Arizona State, Baylor, Florida, Florida State, Georgia. You have Alabama, LSU, Louisville, Michigan, Oregon, Tennessee, Syracuse, UCLA, Vanderbilt. Everybody and their mama offered him a place to go. And the only place Shadeur went was where his dad was. And the only reason Shadeur and Travis were going to, and Shiloh were going to go there is if Deion had a job. If Deion did his job, which he did very well as a father to get him to this point in time, you needed to know when to say when. Okay, now I'm going to give you to Nick Saban. Now I'm going to bring you to LSU, who has developed Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels and all these other great quarterbacks. You chose to make him go to Jackson State. You chose to make him go to Colorado. And yeah, I get you. You know what I mean? There's comparisons to how Cam Newton acted. Cam Newton also won a Heisman and won a national championship. So for me, I get it, but it's a problem to me when it's like Shadeur could have went anywhere in the world and really got that. Hey, Jay, we've talked about it years ago on shows we were on. Where you go matters because it shows that not only were you able to finish that your time at this university, but you were able to be molded by some of the hardest coaches in the entire collegiate atmosphere. If he was with Nick Saban for 2-3 years, hell, even 1 year, and Nick Saban gave his stamp of approval on Shadeur, he'd go in the first round, he'd go in the second round. You know what I mean? But how can what am I supposed to do? Call your dad and ask how he was as a player? He's fucking great. That's my son. You know what I mean? What am I going to say? And it's fucked up. But it really is, to me, that simple. If Shadeur would have went to LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan, wherever, he would have been a first round
You
talent
know
no
what's
matter
fucked up
how
about
he
this?
acted.
You know what's fucked up about this? If Arch Manning would have said, "I want to come out this year," he would have got drafted higher than Shadeur.
Oh
He
yeah.
probably would have. Arch Manning is far better than Shadeur Sanders.
But the game tape ain't there. But the other things that we're talking about is being possibly the reason why Shadeur is not drafted that high is not there with Arch, and he still would have been drafted higher.
But I'll
And
ask you
that's
this: we talked about Eli earlier, right? So Eli, man, fuck San Diego. I ain't going to San Diego. But you never heard Eli say that though. Arch handled everything. And that's where my problem is with what Tony is saying and what we're hearing is true about him walking in with headphones on, blasting fucking NBA YoungBoy, whatever the fuck. Maybe he listens to fucking Green Day. I don't know. Regardless, he's fucking blasting music with his entourage in the back, and Brian Dable's fat ass is sitting there with a Snickers bar, just like, what the fuck? Like, this is the biggest moment of your life. Jay, if ESPN calls you tomorrow to do a one-on-one and see if you're going to get a job, I promise you're the only person showing up to that interview. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's Shadeur. All you had to do was say the right things. And
let me ask you guys this from a different perspective.
Sure.
Do you feel like the NFL felt like I'm gonna say Johnny Manziel in this instance? Hold on, we got a guy that's already rich. We got a guy that don't need no damn money. We got a guy that's walking into this room with 30 people deep, a whole entourage, music on, not giving a fuck about what I say. What's to say I give him this money, he don't perform, he walks away as Deion Sanders' son, who was drafted number 2 overall in the NFL and never played a fucking down. He's already a millionaire.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen guys come into this league and say, I didn't really want to play that long because I want to worry about my health. So, and I'm not saying that's the reason he would do that.
No, it's fair though. You know what I mean? Like, that's the NIL thing Tony and I have talked about before, where it's like, you used to be like, man, bro, like Michael Jordan even talked about it. Like, man, you're hungry. You want to get that bag. These guys are coming into the league and they already have more chains than half the dudes who played in the 80s or 70s. You know what I mean? So
look at Quinn Ewers. So Quinn Ewers, come to find out from a report, he went in the 7th. Quinn Ewers was potentially going to make $8 million this season had he stayed in college, and he decided to go pro and is going to make, I think, like $500,000, or I think cumulatively, like through the bonuses and everything like that, it comes up to like $4 million total. But here's the other thing, Jay. Like I said, I don't think it's an athletic thing. I really don't. I think it's the intangibles. I think it was the cockiness and the attitude. And again, if you're Deion, I don't remember that much of Deion's collegiate tape, so I'm not going to sit here and say Deion was like a stud in college. He more than likely was. I mean, heck, the dude was one of the highest drafted, defensive backs, so he's more than likely a stud for that. But here's the other thing too. We watched him, and I know you watched him a lot. Watching the Pac-12 and the Big 12. The dude's throwing his teammates under the bus. Now, don't get it twisted. You can be
Shadeur.
Yeah, like you can be frustrated. You can be upset. It's like, look, man, these are the guys that you're out there every day with, and you can't be saying, oh yeah, well, my offensive line ain't blocking. I don't know if you saw, they did actually a breakdown of Cam and him both kind of practicing. They're, of course, they're smack talking each other and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're throwing trash back and forth, and he had mentioned to Cam. He mentioned to Cam, he's like, well, it's because you more athletic, you ran more. Cam's like, you had a running game? No, I didn't. So you just gonna smack the face of all your running backs back there. And for a lot of these NFL franchises too, you got to think. I know Cleveland, released Nick Chubb, but still, had Nick Chubb there, being one of the highest paid running backs, think Shadeur's gonna come out? Yeah, we don't have a running game. Yeah, Nick Chubb, I know we're paying you like $20+ million, but we ain't got no running game, Nick.
Even now, look at they took the kid from Ohio State and they took the kid from Tennessee. So it's like Shadeur's gonna say at some point that they don't have a running game, but they went to better universities than you ever did. You know what I mean? Like, and they were great at that. SEC Player of the Year for Dylan Sampson and a national championship from fucking Ohio State. So what do we like, Jay? At the end of the day, man, I take it back to Johnny and I take it back to Cam. People hated Cam. Cam's a national champion. Cam's a Heisman winner. You know, there's a reason that a guy like Hunter still goes in the top 3. And I bet you it's because that kid who's all smiles and he's just having a great time, happy to be there. Like, I love the video that's going around of him putting on his helmet. It's like he looks like a super fan that won a contest to play for the team for a day. Like, he does.
He gets to play. Yeah.
Now, we could talk about his girlfriend and everything else a whole different time. That's neither here nor there. But Shadeur, the person, is just not what people want to see right now. And there's such bullshit to that in the same breath, because there's so many dickhead quarterbacks in NBA.
But as you say it,
Anthony Edwards is an asshole, but he's dropping 40. You know what I mean?
But as you explain it though, Mike, listening to you explain it, because I'm saying the same things, you're saying the same things, but actually listening to you explain it that way this time, put those 3 on the sideline.
Johnny,
in a big game.
Cam,
No. Just Shiloh,
Travis, and Shadeur.
And Shadeur. Put
2 of them
on the
are
sideline. Well, no, fuck the ass part. Fuck the athletic part. Because like you said, it's not the athletic part. It's the fucking attitude.
Yeah.
Travis is all smiles.
Yep.
Enjoying himself.
Having a good time.
Having a fucking good time. Losing or winning. He's still that same individual.
Yeah. And Shiloh's funny as fuck. You saw what Shiloh said? Shiloh was like, if they did this to you, I don't even want to see what they do to me. And they didn't even draft the fucking guy.
You're right.
But he went to Tampa and got signed. I feel great for him, because I think he's going to actually do better having that less of it's a different type of pressure.
Yeah.
But when we look at the season, how many moments can we go back and look at Shadeur acting fucking like an idiot on the sideline?
Oh, yeah. Like showing his watch off whenever whenever people criticize him,
Had a watch on during practice.
The back and forth with his dad, the back and forth with Shiloh, the back and forth with Travis a few times. And it's always him at the center.
Yeah. I'm not, and again, nobody here is saying this kid's a jagoff. Nobody here is saying that he's not going to turn it. Like, this is the steal of the century. If this guy fucking turns into a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, you still fucking took a quarterback in the 3rd round, so Cleveland always knows how to fuck it up. But, like, you know, it's just interesting to me when we really break it down and talk about what the future of the organization looks like. And I just feel like Tony kind of talked about it earlier. Like, I feel like the NFL did make a call and said, Cleveland, fucking take him. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously, why would you take Dylan in the 3rd round and then take Shadeur in the 4th? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like they were trying to make a bad situation and avoid it from getting worse. Because if Shadeur would have slid into the 7th, it would have been, I mean, that just looks horrible on a lot of people. But who made it that way is the only thing I'm asking.
To Cleveland's defense, aren't they like 28 starting quarterbacks deep over the last?
But that's what we're like. What the fuck did we need 2 more for? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
hey, bet on black and red at this point.
Look, just keep throwing stuff at the wall, see if it sticks. To be honest with you,
yeah,
like that's really it. But yeah, man, I appreciate it, gents. We are coming up to the end, unfortunately, but I appreciate both of y'all coming on. If everybody liked what you heard out of Mike, you can always follow him on all of his social media. At the CHhi Kid. You can find him on just about everything. If you liked everything Jay said, you can find him through the All Sports All Plays Network. Jay, I don't know all your social media handles off the top of my head, so you'll have to shout that out.
Jay Nesbitt.
Throwing Hands 23 on Instagram for all the MMA stuff, man. But yeah, I appreciate you letting me back on, Tony. It was great talking and rapping with y'all again.
Yeah, of course. We'll have to talk offline about that comeback show Frankie was talking about, but we might have to be a little easy on that sun stuff.
Nah. Fuck them. I'll play.
But I appreciate everybody tuning in as well. Like I said, we had Tracer Round podcast hosted by Terry. She's a great veteran. Like I said, she brings in a lot of like police officers, EMS, firefighters to help bring up their business, help tell their stories. Same with Into the Weeds podcast. If you ever want to hear anything weird, crazy, the tea on a whole bunch of social drama and whatnot, Into the Weeds with Amber and Alora is a great show to check out as well here on MBR. Military Broadcast Radio has a ton of other great veteran hosts and podcasters and whatnot as far as advice, financial advice, life advice. If you just want to hear cool old stories about being in the military and whatnot, check them out. We have a ton of other great shows, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. We will potentially be back next week, and everybody have a great night.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.